friends, welcome back to my channel. Lauren, the Altered Wife here. We are currently on quarantine. We are still on quarantine for about another month. So I've been really getting into some home projects, and today I just decided to do a really simple little project, and I wanted to share the transformation of this project with you guys. So let me show you what I'm getting into. Let's spin you around. Okay, so in here in my dining room, I have this table. I have everything kind of a mess right now because I was playing around with things yesterday, but this table was passed down to me from my mom. This used to be in our entryway in my house growing up, and she gave it to me when we moved out and got this house. It's still the original color. We've now been in this house for 5 years. I've just been holding off on painting this because A, haven't really had the time to, and B, I didn't know if my mom would want me to repaint this, so I wanted to make sure I had her permission since it is, technically hers. And she was over last week and she mentioned to me that I should paint this. So that right there was permission in itself. So thanks, Mom. It should be a really nice transformation because of all of this detail here, and especially on the front. I'm just gonna use white chalk paint, what I have on hand, because we can't really go out to the stores right now. So you guys, let's get this outside, get to painting, and let's alter this bad boy. Okay guys, so for supplies, I'm using the Rustoleum chalked linen white for this. Like I said, it says it right on the back of the can that it should go on in just one coat and that you shouldn't have to do any prep work, but you can if needed. And then of course I have a normal paintbrush, and then I have this like tough bristle, I don't know what you want to call it exactly. It's kind of more of like a wiry type of bristle, so that if I get in here and I want to just kind of keep my brush really dry and create some texture, I can do that. So I'll show you guys that once I get to it. Well, let's get started. I was using this brush to do my legs, and now that I got to the sides, to all these areas where there's a lot of detail, I switched over to this brush because, like I said, these bristles are a little different. They're not as smooth and soft. These are more like straw, which I like because I like to use these in the areas that I want it to look more distressed, because then I don't have to come back later and sand. Just by using this type of brush can save you a lot of time so that you don't have to come back at the end and do your distressing with sandpaper. Let me show you how I do this. And the trick is to keep your brush fairly dry. That's how you're gonna get that really distressed look. So let me show you here. So I get it a little saturated, and then normally I'll kind of wipe some of that away. I'm gonna start towards the end and just go in light streaks. I'm gonna go ahead and get up under here because I don't want to come back at the end and ruin my brush strokes on the front. So I'm gonna get this stuff first, actually. And up here, I'm gonna get it a little more saturated because I don't really need it to be distressed under here. And like I said, I don't even know what kind of brush you would call this. I just know it's a cheap paintbrush that I think I got in a big pack at Home Depot. I could be wrong. Maybe I got them at like a craft store, but pretty much any type of like really cheap paintbrush, like a wooden handle paintbrush like this, the bristles will be more straw-like and you'll be able to get this texture going on. Let's move on to the front now that I got up under there. So again, I don't have this too saturated, and I'm just gonna lightly, I'm not even pressing down hard, I'm just letting the brush glide. Like even in here, that's a little too heavy, but I'm gonna try to spread that out. And the nice thing about chalk paint is that it dries pretty fast, so you can kind of work with that too and get some texture that way and kind of rub over that dried paint. Normally, dried paint is a challenge to work with, but when you're wanting a distressed look, you can use it to your advantage. That's the only thing you have to watch out for with these cheap brushes. I want just a little more here in the middle. Okay, yeah, you can just kind of play around with your brush strokes until you're happy with how it looks. So see how I have like this line here? I'm probably gonna have to wait till this dries and then come back and I'll be able to fix that line. I'm also going to show you guys this underside because I really like the effect that comes out of this. So again, I have my brush a little more wet, so I'm going to go towards the end, kind of spread out my paint. It's hard to do this and look at what I'm painting. But if you can see how I'm just lightly going across, and it creates that nice texture. So that's why keeping a dry brush is nice. And I wouldn't be able to get this texture with that other brush, so that's why I switched over to this straw-like brush. Okay guys, so after my first coat, it was looking good, but since I did a really thin first coat because I was really working with that distressed look with my brush strokes, I went back and did a light second coat. I should say light, but in some areas I did do it a little heavy, so I just kind of had to feel it out and see what areas I wanted it to look a little more distressed. Those were the areas where I kept my brush very dry and just used a very light amount of paint. And then the areas that I wanted a more finished look, I put the paint on a little heavier there. Let me just show you while I'm on my last little strip here of the table, let me show you what I'm doing with my brush and my little technique. I'm not putting it on too heavy for this whole textured area because I like the stained wood to show through for all of those little details. So I'm not putting it on too heavy here. If you see here, like right here to be exact, that is an area where I didn't really even paint over with my brush for the second coat. You can see kind of the variation here where there's some lighter spots, some heavier spots. I'm losing daylight, so the lighting isn't the best right now. And then of course there's just natural wear and tear on this because, I mean, gosh, my mom has had this table for as long as I can remember. I know my sister and I used to like play with toys on this table. These are all honestly probably like pencils like that were getting stabbed into the table. There's definitely a lot of age here with this. A lot of history for our family. You know, if I could have picked and went to the store and got what I wanted, I think I would have chosen off-white, but I'm so glad that I did the crisp linen white because I love the contrast with this bright white and the old stain that shows through. It looks so good. And look at the sky. Well, y'all, I think she's done. I'm so happy with how it looks. I think it actually gives me a little bit of a boho vibe, especially if you look at the top of it here, like with these like leaf details. I don't know, it just gives me a little bit of like a boho, like farmhouse boho vibe. So if you can see here, when doing that second coat, by leaving my brush a little dry in some areas, it creates a little more depth with those textures and it kind of layers those brush strokes on. And that's what kind of gives it a nice aged look. It's a good way of distressing if you don't have sandpaper or if you're just too lazy like me to go back and sand at the end. Now, of course, I could always go back and distress a little bit with some sandpaper if I wanted to, like if I wanted to like around the edges, but honestly, I'm really happy with how it looks. I don't like too much distress on furniture. I'm just gonna leave it because I'm happy with it. I love it. So now I'm just gonna let this dry. It shouldn't take too long because like I said, chalk paint dries super fast. So I'm gonna let this dry for maybe like an hour just to be sure. And then I'll move it inside and I'll show you guys tomorrow what it looks like all decorated up. I say tomorrow, but for you guys, it's gonna be like the next clip. So yeah, here we go. Just like that, folks, I'd say this piece is altered. You can see that just a simple coat of chalk paint and 2 hours of work can make all the difference in updating a space. I love how this turned out. My mom loves it, Cody loves it, so I would say that's a win. I know this was nothing too crazy, but I do just want to thank you guys for joining in on this little DIY project. Thanks for tuning in to The Altered Wife, and I'll see you next time.